Call it if you want to embarrass yourself further, my sister said, sliding the old envelope back toward me with one manicured finger. The whole conference room laughed. My mother covered her mouth like she was trying to be kind, but her shoulders shook. My uncle leaned back in his chair and smiled at the ceiling. My cousin typed something into the family group chat before the attorney had even closed the will folder. I sat at the end of the Polish table in a blazer that still had a crease from the thrift store hanger, holding the only thing my grandfather had left me. No check, no house, no shares, just a cream envelope, brittle at the edges, with my name written in my grandfather's square, careful hand. Inside was one phone number and 5 words. When you are ready, call. My family thought it was a joke. They thought Silas Mercer, the man who had built Mercer Development from 2 rented trucks and a handshake into one of the largest private construction companies in northern Pennsylvania, had finally confirmed what they had always believed about me. That I was the failure, the dropout, the granddaughter who managed a hardware store because she could not do anything bigger. They thought the envelope was the last laugh. What they did not know was that the phone number was not a consolation prize, it was a door. And once I opened it, nobody in that room would be able to pretend they had not spent years looking down on the person Silas trusted most. My name is Claire Mercer. I was 29 years old when my grandfather died. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment above a bakery in Ashton, Pennsylvania, and managed a family-owned hardware and restoration shop called Northline Supply. I knew more about hinges, paint solvents, lumber grades, and small-town contractors than my mother thought any woman should admit in public. My mother, Lorna Mercer, believed in appearances the way some people believe in religion. She never said she was disappointed in me directly when strangers were listening. She used softer words, unsettled, unfinished. Still finding herself, she said them with a little sigh, as if my life were a sweater she had tried to fold neatly and failed. My older sister Brielle was the finished one. Brielle had a business degree, a husband with perfect teeth, and a startup that made dashboards for real estate investors. She spoke in pitch deck sentences. She wore camel coats and gold jewelry, and knew how to make a room look at her before she said a word. Uncle Martin was the loud one. He had worked for my grandfather's company for 15 years and called himself acting chief operating officer whenever he introduced himself to people who did not know better. He wore expensive watches, drove a black Range Rover, and spoke about legacy whenever he meant money. My grandfather knew all of them. He loved them, I think. Silas was not a cold man. He sent birthday cards, he hosted holidays. He paid school fees and medical bills and down payments he pretended were loans. He gave everyone chances, but he watched. That was the part they forgot. Silas watched the way a carpenter watches a wall after setting a beam. Quietly, patiently, waiting to see what weight it can hold. I learned that in his workshop. Every Sunday from the time I was 9 until I was 19, I went to his place outside Rindle Falls. His house sat on a ridge above a quarry lake, with a gravel drive, 3 old apple trees, and a workshop he had built before I was born. The place smelled like cedar, motor oil, coffee, and rain trapped in work boots. He taught me to sand with the grain and measure twice, and he taught me never to trust a man who bragged about speed before he checked for level. At 19, I left community college in the middle of my 2nd semester, because Silas fell from a ladder in the workshop and fractured his hip. He also hit his head hard enough to slur his words for 10 days. The doctor said he needed daily help, medication management, transport to therapy, and someone stubborn enough to make him do the exercises he hated. My mother said, he has insurance. Martin said, I have 3 sites running. Brielle was in Boston finishing her degree and did not come home for 5 weeks. I drove 45 minutes every morning before my shift at Northline. I helped Silas stand. I counted his steps. I argued with him about the walker. I cooked eggs the way he liked them, too brown at the edges. I sorted his pills into a plastic box marked with the days of the week. 4 months later, he was back in the workshop, slower but upright. I did not go back to school. My scholarship was gone. My savings were gone. Northline offered me full-time work, and then assistant manager, then manager. I told myself I would return to classes eventually. Eventually became years. My family turned that choice into my character flaw. At holidays, Brielle would mention her investors and then look at me with soft pity. Martin would ask whether I was still selling screws. My mother told her friends, Claire is practical, not academic, but practical. Silas never corrected all of it in public. He was not a man who wasted words on rooms determined not to hear, but he would catch my eye across the table and tap 2 fingers once against the wood, our signal, still standing. The last time he used it was at Thanksgiving, 5 months before he died. Everyone had gathered at his house. My mother had taken over the kitchen even though Silas hated people rearranging his knives. Brielle and her husband Evan arrived late because their Tesla needed charging. Martin showed up with a bottle of wine he made sure everyone knew cost $200. At dinner, my mother started her usual round of family achievements. Brielle's company secured another investor meeting, she said, glowing. Evan is being considered for partner. Martin closed the Ridgeway acquisition. Martin corrected her. Nearly closed. Nearly, she said, as if that were better. Then her eyes moved to me. And Claire is still at Northline, she said, the hardware place. Brielle smiled into her wine. Martin chuckled. Every empire needs nails. A few cousins laughed. I looked down at my plate. Silas set his fork down. Claire runs that place, he said. The room quieted. Inventory, payroll, vendor accounts, staffing, customer disputes, emergency orders. Half the contractors in this county call her before they call their own suppliers. My mother waved lightly. Dad, we are proud of her. Nobody said otherwise. Silas looked at me across the table and tapped 2 fingers against the oak, still standing. After dessert, I found him in the workshop. He was sitting on his old stool, turning a small block of cherry wood in his hands. They make you feel small, he said. I shrugged. I'm used to it. Do not get used to poison just because they serve it on china. I remember that sentence because it did not sound like him. Silas usually spoke plainly. That night, his voice carried something heavier. I have taken care of what matters, he said. What does that mean? He looked at the cherry wood instead of me. It means one day they will learn the difference between being loud and being worthy. I thought he was tired. I thought he was being dramatic because he had turned 84 and hated that his knees hurt in cold weather. I wish I had asked more. Silas died on a Monday morning in April. My mother called at 6:22 while I was opening Northline for the early contractors. The store lights were still flickering awake. I had a box cutter in one hand and a stack of invoices under my arm. Your grandfather passed last night, she said. No warmth, no tremor, just information. I gripped the counter. What happened? His heart, apparently. The attorney is reading the will tomorrow at 2. Pearson Dalloway, downtown Wilkes Bar. Dress appropriately. Then she hung up. For a few seconds, I listened to the empty line. Northline's owner, Janet, came out from the office and saw my face. Claire? My grandfather died. She did not ask whether I needed the day. She took the invoices from my arm and said, Go. I drove to Silas's house on the ridge. Brielle's car was already there, parked at an angle near the front steps. Martin's Range Rover sat behind it. My mother's sedan was pulled close to the porch like she owned the place already. Through the window, I could see them moving around the kitchen, not grieving, sorting. Brielle was opening drawers. Martin had a legal pad. My mother stood at the counter with a stack of folders. I almost turned around. Then I looked past the house to the workshop. The door was closed. That was what broke me. Not my family at the kitchen island discussing assets before Silas was buried. Not my mother's voice. Not Brielle's bright, greedy concentration. The closed workshop door. Silas always left it open when he was home. My mother met me at the front door before I could reach the kitchen. She looked me up and down. Tomorrow is not the time for one of your work shirts. Nice to see you too. Do not be defensive. I'm trying to help you. Behind her, Martin said, Has anyone found the company documents? Brielle answered. Dad kept everything with attorneys. He was paranoid. My mother lowered her voice. Your grandfather was generous, but he understood responsibility. Whatever happens tomorrow, try to be gracious. Meaning what? Meaning you should not expect him to reward sentiment over competence. She stepped aside, finished with me. I walked through the house but did not stay. Every room felt invaded. Someone had moved Silas's reading glasses. Someone had opened the cabinet where he kept the good coffee. Someone had placed sticky notes on furniture. I went to the workshop instead. Dust lay on the workbench. A half-finished repair sat in the vise, an old chair rail from his dining room. His pencil was still tucked behind a jar of screws. His mug, the green one with a chipped handle, sat near the lathe. I stood there until the light changed. The next day, I wore the navy blazer I had bought for a store conference 3 years earlier and drove to the law office alone. The parking lot looked like a luxury dealership. Brielle arrived in a charcoal dress and heels sharp enough to leave marks in tile. Evan followed carrying a leather portfolio. Martin stepped out of his Range Rover with sunglasses on, even though the sky was gray. My mother got out of a rideshare and pretended not to see me notice. She had sold her sedan 2 months earlier. I knew because Janet's brother ran the used lot and mentioned it by accident. My mother had debts. She would never say that out loud. Inside Pierce and Dalloway, we sat in a waiting area with heavy chairs and old oil paintings. Brielle and Evan whispered by the water cooler. "There are liquid accounts," she said. "There has to be," Evan murmured. "The company matters more." Martin joined them. The company needs continuity. Silas knew that. They noticed me only when I sat across from them. Brielle lifted her eyebrows. "You came. It is a will reading." "I know, I just thought you might be working," she said, working the way some people say contagious. I looked at the carpet. The attorney opened the conference room door at exactly 2. Gideon Pierce was in his late 60s, thin, clean-shaven, wearing a gray suit that looked older than some of the associates in the office. He held a folder against his chest and greeted us with the solemn efficiency of a man who had seen too many families become honest around money. "The Mercer family," he said, "we are ready." We took our seats around a long table. Gideon read the will in a measured voice. Martin received the lake cottage and $900,000. He nodded once, disappointed but trying not to show it. My mother received Silas's townhouse in Scranton and $650,000. She exhaled through her nose. Relief, not grief. Brielle received $500,000 and Silas's minority stake in a private investment fund. Evan immediately uncapped a pen. Several cousins received education trusts, smaller cash gifts, personal items. Then Gideon turned a page. "To my granddaughter, Claire Mercer, I leave one sealed envelope to be opened only by her." Every head turned. Gideon slid the cream envelope across the table. My name was written on the front, Claire Mercer. The ink was faded. The paper was soft at the corners. Silas had not written it recently. I opened it carefully. Inside was one piece of paper, a phone number. Beneath it, 5 words. "When you are ready, call." That was all. The silence lasted long enough for everybody to understand. Then Brielle laughed. It started small and became uncontrollable. She pressed her fingers to her mouth, but she did not stop. "I am sorry," she said, not sounding sorry. "He left you customer service." Martin laughed then, a deep, satisfied sound. "Maybe it's a career counselor," he said. My mother turned her face away, but I saw the smile. The attorney did not smile. Gideon watched me as if the envelope had weight nobody else could measure. Outside, the sky was too bright after the conference room. I stood beside my old Honda with the envelope in one hand while my family spilled into the parking lot like people leaving a restaurant. My mother approached first. "Claire," she said softly, "I know this hurts. Do you? Your grandfather knew you were not equipped to handle large sums. That number is probably someone who can guide you, a financial counselor, maybe a vocational contact." Brielle walked past us and called over her shoulder, "Ask if they do scholarships for unfinished degrees." Martin stopped at my car and placed his palm on the roof. Not hard, just enough to make it clear he was blocking me. "If that number connects to anything involving Mercer Development, you call me first. I run operations, understood?" I looked at his hand on my car, then at him. "Move." His smile faded. "Excuse me?" "Move your hand." For a second he looked almost amused. Then Gideon stepped out of the building behind us. Martin removed his hand. I got into my car, locked the door, and set the envelope on the passenger seat. My phone buzzed before I started the engine. Family group chat. "Brielle, Claire got an envelope with a phone number. Grandpa really said good luck." 3 laughing reactions. A cousin wrote, "Maybe it's a coupon line." My mother added a heart. I stared at the screen until it blurred. Then I looked at Silas's handwriting. "When you are ready, call." My hands shook when I dialed. The phone rang twice. A man's voice answered. "Claire Mercer?" "Yes. This is Adrian Vale." I did not recognize the name. "Your grandfather told me you might call from a parking lot." I gripped the steering wheel. "Who are you?" "I am the trustee of the Mercer Legacy Trust. Your grandfather retained me 18 years ago. I cannot discuss the details over the phone. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning at 10? "Trustee?" "Yes." My mouth went dry. "What kind of trust?" He paused, not long, but enough for the world outside my windshield to sharpen. The kind your family does not know exists. I closed my eyes. What do I bring? Government identification, birth certificate if you have it, social security card, and the original envelope. Why me? His voice changed slightly. Less formal, more careful. Silas said he wanted the person who came when he could not stand, not the people who arrived when he could no longer object. I covered my mouth with my hand. There is also a condition, Adrian said. If you never called, the trust would transfer permanently to a housing foundation your grandfather created. No one else in the family could claim it. So the envelope was a test. Silas called it a choice. I sat in that parking lot for 10 minutes after the call ended. The world kept moving. Cars started. Doors closed. Somewhere behind me, Brielle laughed again. I cried then. Not because I knew what I had inherited. I did not. I cried because Silas had known exactly how they would treat me, and he had still trusted me to pick up the phone. That night, my mother hosted what she called a memorial dinner at Silas's house. The funeral had not even happened. The roast was from a grocery store. The wine was from Silas's cellar. Martin sat in Silas's chair at the head of the table and spoke as if a coronation had occurred. The company needs steady hands, he said. I will speak with Gideon tomorrow about transition authority. Brielle had her laptop open beside her plate. The 500 will stabilize my runway, she told Evan. If we use the fund stake as leverage, maybe we can reopen the Series A conversation. My mother lifted her glass. To Dad, she said, and to everything he built for this family. They drank. I held my glass but did not sip. My mother noticed. Claire, she said, you are very quiet. I am listening. Would you like to share what was in your envelope? We could all call together. Brielle smiled. Put it on speaker. A cousin snorted. I looked around the table. People who had eaten Silas's food, borrowed Silas's money, praised Silas's judgment when it benefited them, now laughing at his final instruction to me. No, I said. The room chilled. Martin leaned back. That envelope was part of the will. The family has a right to know if it concerns estate assets. It was left to me. You are not qualified to decide what matters. My mother sighed. Claire, do not make this ugly. I am not the one laughing. Brielle closed her laptop halfway. You have to understand how this looks. Grandpa gave everyone real assets and gave you a number. Maybe that was his way of helping you without giving you something you could misuse. Misuse. You know what I mean. No, I said. Say it clearly. She looked away first. After dinner, I went home to my apartment above the bakery. The hallway smelled like sugar and yeast. My rooms were small, but they were mine. I laid everything on my bed. Driver's license, birth certificate, social security card, envelope. Then I opened my phone. The group chat had become a strategy session. Martin. If Silas set up any side trust, it is challengeable. Age, injury history, possible decline. Brielle. We need to know what Claire is hiding. My mother, I will talk to her. She listens when pressed. I put the phone face down. I did not sleep much. Adrian Vale's office was in a limestone building near the river in Harrisburg. No shiny lobby. No receptionist with a headset. Just a brass nameplate, old wood floors, and shelves of legal binders. Adrian was younger than I expected, maybe 50, with dark hair going silver at the temples and a face built for privacy. Behind his desk hung a photograph of two men standing beside a muddy construction site. Silas, maybe in his late 50s, wearing a hard hat and grinning. Adrian, younger, holding rolled plans under one arm. That was the first affordable senior project Mercer Development built, Adrian said when he saw me looking. I did not know you knew him that long enough to know when he was serious. He opened a leather folder. In 2006, Silas Mercer established the Mercer Legacy Trust. It is irrevocable. I am the appointed trustee. It is separate from the will read yesterday. It does not pass through probate. It is not an estate asset, and it is not affected by challenges to the will. I sat very still. The trust owns 100% of Mercer Development Group, including the operating company land holdings, current contracts, reserve accounts, and long-term investments. Current estimated value is approximately $41 million. The number did not feel real. It felt like a sound from another room. I manage a hardware store, I said. Silas knew that. I did not finish college. He knew that too. Then why would he do this? Adrian removed his glasses. Because he believed you understood stewardship. His word, not mine. I stared at the folder. Stewardship, not ownership? not reward, responsibility. You have 30 days to accept or decline, Adrian said. If you decline, the trust transfers to the foundation. If you accept, control transfers immediately. There is also a letter from Silas that can only be released after acceptance. My hand hovered over the pen. I did not sign. Adrian nodded, as if he had expected that. Silas said you would ask for time. I need to understand what I would be taking on. Then you should speak with someone. He turned his monitor toward me and started a video call. A woman answered from what looked like a conference room. She was in her 60s, with cropped gray hair and the expression of someone who had no patience for decorative leadership. Claire, Adrian said. This is Lenora Shaw, President of Operations at Mercer Development. Lenora studied me through the screen. So you were the one Silas talked about. I guess so. I do not care whether you have a degree, she said. I care whether you tell the truth when you do not know something. I do not know almost everything about running a development company. Her mouth twitched. Good start. For the next hour she explained the company in plain language. 47 employees, 7 active projects, 3 land parcels under review, 2 pending municipal approvals, conservative debt, strong reserves, good crews, a few problems. One problem is your uncle, Lenora said. Adrian folded his hands. I said, what did he do? Over the last year, Martin pushed through inflated expense reports, hired 2 relatives into vague positions, and attempted to redirect a vendor contract to a company owned by a friend. Silas stopped the vendor change, but he had not yet confronted the payroll issue. My stomach tightened. Does Martin know Silas knew? No, Lenora said. He is about to. After the call, I walked along the river for 20 minutes with the envelope in my coat pocket. $41 million, a company, employees, land, contracts. My family circling in group messages, already preparing to call Silas incompetent because his judgment had not favored them enough. My mother called while I was driving home. I heard you went to Harrisburg. Of course she had. Some cousin had seen my car. Or Brielle had checked my location through an old shared app I had forgotten to disable. Or my mother simply collected information the way other people collected recipes. I had an appointment. With whom? My business. Her voice cooled. If the envelope concerns money, you owe your family transparency. Eu with Silas respect. Do not take that tone. I am not a child. Then stop acting like one hiding candy in your pocket. I hung up. 20 minutes later, Brielle texted privately. My attorney says trusts can be challenged. If Grandpa created something late in life, mental capacity becomes relevant. Do not make this worse for yourself, Martin called after that. Claire, sweetheart, he said, warm as butter left in the sun. Let's meet, you and me. No lawyers. If Silas puts you in the middle of something complicated, I can help. This is between me and Grandpa. Grandpa is dead. The words landed like a slap. I hung up. Thursday night, my mother called a family meeting at Silas's house. She did not invite me. She summoned me. I went because I wanted to know how far they would go. There were 11 people in the living room when I arrived. Martin in Silas's chair near the fireplace. Brielle and Evan on the couch. My mother by the window. Aunts, cousins, 2 spouses who had no reason to be there, except that money makes people suddenly close. Aunt Miriam sat near the hallway, quiet as always. Miriam was my mother's younger sister. She worked at the county library, wore cardigans in every shade of blue, and had mailed me books when I was a teenager without ever signing the notes. She was the only person in that room who looked uncomfortable. Martin began before I took off my coat. We are concerned. That sounds exhausting. Brielle's mouth tightened. My mother said, sit down, Claire. I am fine standing. Martin leaned forward. If Silas left you anything connected to Mercer Development, you have a responsibility to disclose it. The company supports families. It cannot be put at risk because of sentiment. Sentiment. You know what I mean? People keep saying that to me. Brielle stood. She had been waiting for her turn. I could tell by the way she smoothed her skirt and lifted her chin. I will say what everyone is trying to avoid, she said. You are not qualified. You run a hardware store in a town where everybody knows everybody. That is not corporate leadership. It is not finance. It is not development. Grandpa loved you, but love is not a business plan. A cousin murmured agreement. Martin crossed his arms. My mother looked at me with practiced sadness. Sweetheart, you have always struggled to finish things. School, plans, relationships. Your grandfather may have wanted to comfort you. That does not mean you should mistake comfort for capability. I looked around the room. No one defended me. Miriam looked down at her hands. I did not blame her, not then. There are families where even kindness has to move quietly to survive. I heard you, I said. Martin frowned. That is all? No, I am meeting with my attorney again tomorrow. After that, you will get clarity. Brielle laughed once. Your attorney? Yes. I put my hand on the doorknob. Good night. The room erupted as soon as the door closed behind me. I heard my name through the walls. For the first time in my life, I did not stop to translate their anger into something I could apologize for. Friday morning, I signed. Adrian placed each document in front of me one by one. Beneficiary acknowledgement, acceptance of fiduciary responsibilities, identity verification, transfer notice, trustee certification. The pen was heavy. Silas had given it to Adrian in 1998, he told me. My signature looked steadier than I felt. When the final page was signed, Adrian opened a desk drawer and removed a second envelope. This one was smaller, ivory paper, my name again. Silas wrote this last winter, he said. It was to be given only if you accepted. I opened it with both hands. Claire, if you are reading this, you picked up the phone and you chose the burden instead of the insult. I know what they say about you. I know what they say when they think I do not hear. I have heard every version of it. They think I am leaving you a prize. I am not. I am leaving you a job. Mercer Development is not a bank account. It is people, land, promises, and consequences. Martin wants the chair. Brielle wants the capital. Lorna wants proof that her life looks better than it feels. They may all be useful one day, but they cannot be allowed to take what they have not learned to carry. You carried me when I could not stand. That told me what I needed to know. Trust Lenora for the first year. Trust Adrian on paper. Trust yourself when the room gets loud. Still standing. Silas, I folded the letter and pressed it to my chest. Adrian looked away. When I could speak, I asked, what happens when they challenge it? Silas anticipated that. Of course he had. The trust includes a no-contest provision tied to the will. Any beneficiary who challenges the trust or attempts to interfere with the transfer has their will distribution frozen until the matter is resolved. That could take years. They do not know that. They will tomorrow. Tomorrow? Adrian slid a prepared notice across the desk. I recommend a formal disclosure meeting. Your grandfather instructed that if you accepted, the full family should be informed in a structured setting, with counsel present, before misinformation could spread. I looked at the notice. Silas's house, Saturday, 2 o'clock. I almost laughed. Even from the grave, he had better timing than all of us. Friday night, the group chat became frantic. Martin wrote, spoke with counsel. We can seek emergency review if any improper trust exists. Brielle wrote, Grandpa had documented health issues. There is a capacity argument. My mother wrote privately, Claire, I am begging you not to let lawyers use you. You do not have the money or the experience for this. Hand over whatever it is and we will handle it as a family. As a family. Those words looked different after Thursday night. I sent one message to Adrian. Please send the notice. He replied 3 minutes later. Already done. Saturday at 1:50, I parked at Silas's house and sat in my car for 1 minute. The workshop was visible beyond the apple trees. The door was still closed. I told myself I would open it later. Inside, the living room was full. Martin had taken Silas's chair again. Brielle sat beside Evan with a folder on her lap. My mother wore black and pearls, a funeral costume reused for legal theater. Cousins whispered near the bookshelves. Miriam sat apart by the hallway. They thought I had called the meeting because I was frightened. Martin proved it. Claire, he said before I had taken off my coat. This can still be handled privately. It will be handled properly. Brielle's eyes narrowed. Where is your attorney? The doorbell rang. No one moved. I opened the door. Adrian Vale stood on the porch in a dark suit, carrying a leather briefcase. Behind me, Brielle whispered. Oh. Martin stood. My mother went pale. Adrian stepped into the living room and looked around without hurry. Good afternoon. I am Adrian Vale, trustee of the Mercer Legacy Trust. The room changed. Not loudly. It tightened. Martin said, Trustee of what? Adrian set his briefcase on the coffee table, opened it, and removed a stack of documents. Please sit. This will be easier if everyone hears the same information at the same time. Martin did not sit. Adrian continued anyway. In 2006, Silas Mercer established an irrevocable trust with me as trustee. The trust is separate from the will read earlier this week. It does not pass through probate and is not an estate asset. It cannot be changed by any challenge to the will. He placed the first document on the table. The trust holds 100% ownership of Mercer Development Group, all operating assets, land holdings, development contracts, and associated investment accounts. Current valuation is approximately $41 million. Someone gasped. I think it was Evan. The sole beneficiary is Claire Mercer. She accepted the beneficiary role yesterday morning. Transfer of control is effective immediately. Silence. Not polite silence. The kind that follows impact. Brielle stared at me as if I had become a person she did not have a category for. My mother's lips parted. Martin's face went red from the neck up. No, he said. Adrian looked at him. I understand this may be unexpected. Unexpected? This is fraud. It is not. My father was old. Adrian removed 3 folders and laid them beside the trust documents. Silas completed independent mental capacity evaluations in 2006, 2016, and January of this year. All 3 were conducted by board-certified physicians unaffiliated with the family or company. All 3 found him fully competent to execute and maintain his estate plan. Martin pointed at the folders but did not touch them. I ran that company. You held an operations title, Adrian said. Ownership remained with the trust. That company is mine. Lenora Shaw entered then. I had not known Adrian invited her. She stood in the doorway with a tablet under one arm and looked directly at Martin. No, Martin, it was never yours. His face changed again. Anger, then fear. Lenora stepped into the room. Silas asked me to attend if Claire accepted. As president of operations, I will remain for a 12-month transition and training period. All company authorities have already been updated. Building access, banking access, contract approval, and executive permissions now route through Claire and the trustee office. Brielle stood. This is insane. Claire sells plumbing fixtures. Claire manages staff, budgets, vendor contracts, emergency logistics, and customer disputes in a profitable business, Lenora said. Your grandfather understood transferable skills better than most people in this room. Brielle recoiled as if the sentence had physical force. My mother looked at me. You cannot do this to us. There it was. Not congratulations, not shock, not even grief. Accusation. Do what? I asked. Take everything. I turned toward her fully. You told me in a parking lot that Grandpa left me the envelope because I could not handle real money. She flinched. Brielle posted jokes in the family chat. Martin threatened me beside my car. On Thursday, all of you sat in this room and said I was unqualified, unfinished, and not worthy of a seat at the table. My voice stayed calm. That mattered. Do not call it family now because the documents are not in your favor. Miriam lowered her head. Brielle whispered, 41 million. Evan said nothing. His eyes were fixed on the floor. Martin turned on Adrian. I will sue. That is your right, Adrian said. However, the trust contains a no-contest provision tied to distributions under the will. If you challenge the trust or interfere with the transfer, your inheritance under the will is frozen until final resolution. Based on the documents available, a challenge would likely take 2 to 3 years and carry significant legal cost. Martin's mouth opened. No words came. The same applies to any beneficiary who joins such a challenge, Adrian added. Brielle sat down slowly. My mother's hand went to her throat. The room understood the math. Martin's cottage and cash, frozen. Brielle's $500,000 and investment stake, frozen. My mother's townhouse and money, frozen. Silas had not just chosen me. He had built a fence around the choice. Martin grabbed his coat and walked toward the door. At the threshold, he turned back. Your grandfather lost his mind at the end. I heard myself answer before anyone else could. No. He finally stopped pretending he did not see yours. The room went still again. Martin left without slamming the door. That was somehow worse. Brielle followed, pulling Evan with her. My mother stayed seated for almost a minute, staring at the floor. Then she stood, smoothed her skirt, and walked past me. She did not speak. When the house emptied, Miriam remained. Adrian gathered his documents. Lenora stepped outside to take a call. Miriam came to me slowly. Your grandfather kept the workshop warm all those years, she said. I looked at her. I wondered why. Nobody else went out there. Her eyes shone. Now I know. She put her hand over mine. He was right. Then she left too. I stood alone in Silas's living room, surrounded by furniture he had chosen. walls he had painted, money everyone had counted before it reached their hands. Through the back window, the workshop sat quiet under the trees. For the first time since he died, I breathed all the way in. Monday morning, I walked into Mercer Development headquarters. The building was 2 stories of red brick and dark green trim on a wide road outside Wilkes Barre. Silas had never believed in glass towers. He said if a company needed a marble lobby to look successful, it probably had weak joists somewhere else. Lenora met me at the front door. "I am not here to flatter you," she said. "Good. I am not here to let you drown either. Better." She almost smiled. We spent the day in the main conference room. She brought project binders, budgets, org charts, vendor lists, lease schedules, debt summaries, and municipal timelines. I took notes until my hand cramped. I did not sit in Silas's office. Not that day. Instead, I asked questions. What does this term mean? Why is that parcel still idle? Who approves change orders? Which contractors does the company trust? Where are we exposed? Lenora answered every question without making me feel foolish. When I asked something basic, she explained it. When I asked something good, she said so. By 4 o'clock, I had a headache and 20 pages of notes. By 5, Martin called. I put him on speaker with Lenora in the room. "You locked me out of my office," he said. "Access has been updated," I said. "I have files in there." "Lenora will arrange a supervised time for you to collect personal items." "Personal items? Claire, I built that department." "Then you know how policies work." His breathing sharpened. "You are enjoying this." "No, I am doing it correctly." Lenora looked down at her papers to hide a smile. "I will be filing," Martin said. "Adrian sent your attorney the no contest notice. You should read it before making that decision." "You are threatening me." "I am informing you." He hung up. Lenora waited until the line went dead, then slid a thick binder toward me. "That was the easy call," she said. "There are harder ones?" "Every day." She opened the binder to a tab marked Insurance and Risk. For the next 2 hours, she walked me through things my family had never imagined I could learn. Bonding requirements, environmental reports, escrow holds, tenant improvement allowances, contractor lien waivers. The difference between cash on paper and cash that can actually be used. At one point, I rubbed my eyes and said, "I feel like I am reading a language built to punish people who ask normal questions." Lenora leaned back. "Good, keep asking normal questions." Silas did that. Men in suits would bury a problem under technical language, and he would say, "Tell me where the money goes and who gets hurt if we are wrong." It annoyed them because it worked. That sentence became my rule for the first month. "Where does the money go? Who gets hurt if we are wrong?" I asked it in budget meetings. I asked it on job sites. I asked it when a banker tried to compliment my fresh perspective while speaking only to Lenora. I asked it when a project manager used acronyms so quickly the room pretended to understand. At first, a few people smiled the way my family smiled. Patient, indulgent, waiting for me to reveal the size of my ignorance. By the 3rd week, they stopped smiling. Not because I knew everything, because I wrote everything down, followed up, and remembered answers. That is how competence grows when nobody hands it to you as a title. The next caller was Brielle. I almost let it go to voicemail, but I answered. "My company is in trouble," she said. "No hello, I'm sorry to hear that. Evan wants me to return the investor money if I cannot close the round. I put most of Grandpa's $500 into operating costs already. I have maybe $70,000 left." That was fast. Do not judge me. "You called me." Silence. Then, quieter. "I need help." The old me would have mistaken that sentence for an apology. The new me waited. Brielle exhaled. "What I said was cruel." "Which part?" "All of it." I let the silence sit. "I am not giving you money," I said, her breath caught. "But Mercer Development needs better tenant maintenance software. Lenora has been looking at vendors. If your platform is real and not just investor language, submit a proposal. It will go through the same process as everyone else's." "You want me to pitch?" "I want you to compete. And if we are the best option, then you get a contract. And if we are not, then you do not." She laughed once, short and disbelieving. "You sound like Grandpa." "Do I?" Yes. For the first time, she did not make it sound like an insult. 3 weeks later, Martin filed a petition challenging the trust. Adrian expected it. He responded with the trust instrument, the 3 capacity evaluations. recorded letters from Silas trustee certifications, and meeting notes spanning 18 years. The judge denied Martin's request for emergency control at the preliminary hearing. The no contest clause activated. Martin's cottage and cash were frozen. His wife moved out 6 days later. I did not celebrate. That surprised people when they found out. They expected revenge to feel loud. It did not. It felt like opening a window in a room that had been sealed too long. Martin had taught me to fish when I was 7. He had carried me on his shoulders at county fairs. He had also padded expenses, hired relatives into fake jobs, threatened me, and called me unfit in Silas's living room. People can be part of your happy memories and still lose the right to your trust. Lenora and I addressed the payroll issue first. 2 relatives Martin had placed in vague project support roles were given formal reviews. One never responded, terminated. The other admitted he had been paid to stay available and returned part of the money through a repayment agreement. Martin's son, Caleb, was different. He showed up to the review meeting in work boots, nervous and pale. My dad told me the job was temporary until he found me a real placement, Caleb said. I know I did not earn the pay. I can pay it back, not all at once. Lenora asked, what do you actually want to do? Electrical. We moved him into a paid apprenticeship track with repayment deducted over time. Real work, real supervision. No title he had not earned. That decision angered Martin more than firing him would have, because it proved the problem was never mercy, it was entitlement. My mother spent her inheritance in 4 months. I learned this from Brielle, not from her. The townhouse had gone to cover debt. A large piece of the cash went to credit cards and a private loan my mother had hidden during her divorce. Then came the car lease, the kitchen renovation, the clothes she bought because people would be watching. Appearances are expensive when reality is collapsing behind them. One afternoon in August, my mother asked to meet me at a diner outside Ashton. Asked, not ordered. That alone made me go. She was already in a booth when I arrived. No lipstick, no pearls. Her hair pinned back carelessly. For the first time in my life, she looked like a person instead of a presentation. I am broke, she said. No small talk. Completely? Close. I waited. I used the money badly. Yes. Her mouth tightened, but she did not argue. I'm not asking you for a check. Good, she flinched. I did not soften it. Then what are you asking? She wrapped both hands around her coffee mug. I need to know if there is any work I can do. Administrative, reception, anything. I have not worked in years. That was the first honest thing she had asked me for. Not at Mercer Development, I said. Her face fell. That would be unhealthy for both of us. But Northline is hiring a bookkeeper. Janet needs someone organized. I can ask if she will interview you. The hardware store. The old tone almost appeared. Almost. Then she swallowed it. I would appreciate the interview. It will be an interview, Mom, not a favor. I understand. I looked at her for a long moment. Do you? Her eyes filled. I am trying to. That was not healing, but it was a crack in a wall that had been solid for 29 years. Brielle's company pitched to Lenora in September. I was not in the room. I made that decision on purpose. I did not want Brielle performing for me, and I did not want the staff thinking my sister had special access. Lenora put the software through 3 rounds of review, security audit, function test, pilot simulation, budget comparison. The product was good, not perfect. Good. Mercer Development signed a 6-month pilot contract. Fair rate. Clear milestones. Termination clause. Brielle called me afterward. Lenora is terrifying. Yes, I like her. Most people do after they survive her. Brielle was quiet. Thank you for not giving me money. That surprised me. You are welcome? No, I mean it. If you had given me money, I would have hated you for having it, and hated myself for taking it. This way, if the company survives, it survives because we earned the contract. That was the idea. Claire? Yes, I saw you as small because it made me feel bigger. I closed my eyes. Some apologies arrive in plain clothes. I know, I said. I am sorry. I believe you. Does that fix anything? Not yet. Fair. 6 months after the will reading, Martin dropped the lawsuit. His attorney had run out of encouraging words, and Martin had run out of money he could access. The court had made it clear the trust was solid. The evaluations were clean. Silas's intent was documented beyond reason. Martin called me from an unknown number because I had stopped answering his. His voice sounded smaller. I withdrew. Adrian told me. Of course he did. Neither of us spoke for a moment. I want to come back, Martin said. To the company? I have 20 years of experience. You also have inflated expense reports and attempted vendor steering. He inhaled sharply. Silas told you? Silas documented it. That hurt him more. I was angry, he said. That is not an explanation. No, it is not. I looked through my office window at the company sign outside, Mercer Development Group, green letters on a white field. Silas had designed it himself. If you want to apply for a position, you can submit a resume to HR. You will go through the same process as any outside candidate. No executive title, no special access, no oversight of family payroll. Any repayment issues will be addressed formally before employment begins. He was quiet long enough that I thought he had hung up. That is humiliating. No, I said. It is ordinary. You are just not used to ordinary rules. His breath shook. Your grandfather was not confused. No, he saw me clearly. Yes, I hated him for that. There it was, the sentence beneath all the shouting. Send the resume if you want the process, I said. Claire. Yes? You belong in that chair. I did not answer quickly. Some words need room to land without being rewarded too soon. Thank you, I said. Then I hung up. The project that changed everything was not the biggest one. It was a file Lenora found in an old cabinet labeled Holden East. Inside were plans for a 32-unit affordable housing development in Ashton, the town where I lived above a bakery, managed a hardware store, and learned how many families could not afford rent within 30 miles of where they worked. Silas had bought the parcel years earlier. Martin had shelved the project because the margins were thin. On the cover page, Silas had written, "This is where people start, build it right." I stared at those words for a long time. Can we revive it? I asked. Lenora crossed her arms. Yes, it will tie up capital, annoy Martin's old allies, and make less money than the retail center in Dunmore. That was not an answer. Yes, she said, we can revive it. Then revive it. She looked at me with something close to approval. Silas would have liked that. The groundbreaking was in October. No ribbon cutting, no champagne. Just a cold morning, a muddy lot, 2 local reporters, the mayor, Lenora, and a crew chief named Pete, who had worked for Silas since the 90s. Pete shook my hand and said, "Your granddad used to walk sites before sunrise." I know. Drove Martin crazy. I know that too. He grinned. Good. I stood at the edge of the lot and looked toward Northline Supply 3 blocks away. Janet had given me my first full-time job. The bakery under my apartment had fed me day-old rolls when I was too broke to buy dinner. The town had held me in small ways while my family called my life small. Now I could build something here, not because I had won, because I had been trusted. The first shovel of dirt was heavier than I expected. That sounds foolish. Dirt is dirt. But standing there with cold mud on my shoes and reporters holding microphones, I felt the weight of every person who would eventually unlock an apartment door on that site. A single mother who worked nights. A retired couple priced out of the house they had rented for 20 years. A young teacher who loved the town but could not afford to live near the school. Silas had taught me that buildings were not drawings. They were mornings, arguments, rent checks, heat in February. A child with a bedroom door they could close. After the photos, Pete handed me a hard hat with my name on a strip of tape. Boss kept an extra hook in the trailer, he said. For what? For the person who needed to walk the site with him. He hung my hard hat beside an old white one with Silas written across the front in fading marker. I had to look away. That night, Brielle texted a photo from her office. Her team had stayed late fixing a bug Lenora's audit caught. There were pizza boxes on the floor and code on 3 screens. She wrote, "Earning it is exhausting." I wrote back, "Yes." Then after a minute she answered, "Better than begging for it." It was the closest we had ever come to speaking the same language. 1 year after the will reading, we had Thanksgiving at Silas's house. My house, technically. I still did not call it that. I kept his bookshelves, his old radio. The dining table he built from reclaimed oak. His chair remained at the head, empty, with a small jar of yellow mums on the seat. They had grown wild beside the workshop fence every fall. My mother arrived early and asked where the potatoes were. She had interviewed at Northline and gotten the bookkeeping job. Janet said she was good with numbers and terrible with humility, but improving. My mother did not tell people my daughter owns Mercer Development. She said, "Claire has a lot on her plate." It was not perfect, but it was less false. Braille and Evan came together. Her pilot contract had converted to a full 2-year vendor agreement after her platform reduced maintenance response time by 28%. She had earned it. That mattered to both of us. Martin arrived last. He had gone through the hiring process and accepted a senior project manager role, not executive, no private office. He reported to Lenora, who frightened him in healthy ways. The repayment agreement for the expense reports was signed, notarized, and automatic. Caleb came with him wearing an apprentice electrician's jacket and carrying a pie he had clearly bought at a gas station. Miriam brought books for everyone because that was how she loved people. At dinner, nobody asked for an achievement round. That alone felt like progress. Halfway through the meal, my mother looked at the empty chair. "Dad would have liked this," she said. The table went quiet. Martin nodded. He would have complained about the gravy. Brielle smiled, and the chairs being uneven. "They are uneven," I said. Everyone looked at me. Then, for the first time in a long time, the laughter did not cut. After dinner, I went to the workshop alone. The air was cold enough to show my breath. Gravel shifted under my shoes. Behind me, warm light glowed in the kitchen windows. I could hear dishes clinking and someone laughing. The workshop door stuck, as always. I pulled hard. It opened with the same wooden groan. Inside, everything smelled like cedar dust and linseed oil. Hand planes on the pegboard, sandpaper rolls sorted by grit, the lathe under its canvas cover, Silas's stool by the bench. I turned on the light. The bulb flickered once, then held. I sat on the stool and placed my hand on the workbench. There was a worn smooth spot near the edge where Silas's palm had rested for decades. My hand fit over it almost perfectly. For months, people had talked about $41 million as if that were the inheritance. It was not. The inheritance was this: the ability to know the difference between value and price, the memory of a man who noticed who came when he fell, the right to stop explaining my worth to people who benefited from misunderstanding it, the discipline to set boundaries without turning cruel. I had written 3 rules on an index card and taped it inside my kitchen cabinet. 1. I do not audition for people who have already decided I am not enough. 2. I do not let anyone turn my sacrifice into evidence of failure. 3. I can love my family without giving them access to every part of me. I read those rules every morning when I reached for coffee. Some days I needed them. Some days I already knew. I looked around the workshop and whispered, "Still standing." Then I pulled the chain, turned off the light, and walked back across the gravel toward the house. Inside, my family was not fixed. Families like mine do not become gentle because one document exposed them, but they were more honest. The lies had lost their favorite hiding places. That was enough for 1 year. Silas had left me an envelope everyone laughed at. Inside it was not money, it was a phone number. Behind the phone number was a trust. Behind the trust was a man who had watched quietly and chosen carefully. And behind all of it was the truth my family had spent years refusing to see. I was never small. They were just standing too far away from what mattered.